Well, thank y'all very much, and a very special thank you to Sheriff Smith for both his kind words as well as for the leadership that he provides, not only in Smith County, but also the leadership he provides across Texas and really expands beyond the borders of our own state. You know, one thing about sheriffs, you are very natural and profound and prolific leaders. Wherever you serve, and I know you don't limit your leadership to just your neck of the woods, Sheriff. You don't just contain what you do to Tarrant County. You work to expand that effort across our state and then export our law enforcement perspective, our passion to other states across the country. What we know is that if every state in America, if every local community across our state and across our country had the same passion and commitment to law enforcement that our sheriffs have in the state of Texas, our country and our state would be far more safe. So thank you to the sheriffs of this great organization. I want to thank, and there they are, I want to thank, we got Brian Hughes and Mays Middleton over here, two of our great senators. I think Huffman was here earlier with you, was she? Could not make it. It's all right. You can say no, she wasn't here. It's all right. You guys can carry the load yourselves. But listen, I'll be talking about some things later on. Some things about the ways that Texas has had to respond to new and differentiated dangers. And we would not be able to respond the way that we do if we didn't have resources to respond to those dangers. And people like Brian Hughes and Mays Middleton not only were involved in ensuring that Texas as a state would have the resources to respond, but these are two architects of the strategies that Texas employed, strategies that no state has ever employed before in the history of the United States of America to deal with new and profound challenges. So, Senators, I want to thank you both for your leadership and everything that you're doing. So, moments ago, I met someone I'm looking for right now, and that's Brigadier General Dror Avda. Dror, where'd you go off to? He may have remained in the back. We were meeting in the back. Anyway, I'm thinking everybody here knows who he is or has heard from him. If not, you have with you here today in attendance someone who is the Israel's Police and Public Security Ministry attache to the United States and to Canada. He is a trained law enforcement professional, has served in multiple capacities in military and otherwise for Israel. And he is here collaborating with law enforcement here in Texas, which is one of his jobs and one of his goals and missions here in the United States as well as in Canada. I bring this up because one thing that's very important, something that sheriffs work on with the governor, and the governor works on with sheriffs, and that is to show collaboration and to show support. And that's exactly what we did with regard to Israel. As many of you know, Israel was attacked in a warlike fashion on October the 7th, attacked by Hamas. But Hamas was not acting alone. Of course, there were other state actors as well as other actors like Hezbollah who had a participation in the ongoing assault and attack on the people of Israel. One thing that is essential, whenever one of our allies is under attack, whenever someone who is working with us, whether it be a person, an organization like a sheriff, or a country like Israel, who is an international ally in our ongoing international struggles and fights, whenever they come under attack, it is very important for us to show up, to show our support for them. And so what I know in my discussions out back is that just 2 weeks after the attack by Hamas in Israel on October the 7th, you had a sheriff-led coalition of sheriffs led by Sheriff Skinner from right here in the state of Texas, who went over to Israel. A week after that, I went to Israel on November the 1st. During the first month of the war that continues in Israel, it's important for us to go there and recognize and to show publicly how the United States of America, and in this case the state of Texas, stands shoulder to shoulder in alliance with our allies against the warmongers of Hamas. Texas stands with Israel, period, in their fight for their independence. Long before even the war began, Israel was suffering challenges from daily missile launches by Hamas, by Hezbollah, by some others, and now you can add the Houthis to the mix. And it's the kind of thing where we see, you can use by analogy, not to the same magnitude, of course, but you can use by analogy something that Texas law enforcement deals with. You're not dealing with a war, but you are dealing with ongoing assaults in your community of different sorts. It could be gangs, it could be criminal organizations, it could be one rogue criminal by themselves, or it could be what I'll be talking about later, and that is this invasion that's come across a border. There are new and different challenges that you have to deal with every single day. And as you do so, it is essential that you have people who are going to step up with you and for you. And I just want to make the point that as you face your daily battles, I want you to make sure that you know that you have a governor who has your back, who will stand with you as you face those battles. I believe that your back is needed now more than ever, because point one, Texas is a law and order state. Point two, there are many people in this state and others in this country who are antagonistic to the rule of law and order. We all have to remember a foundational principle of this country was we were founded upon the rule of law. If we ever abandon that rule of law, we will abandon one of the concepts that holds us together as a country. People at the tip of the spear of ensuring that we remain a law and order state are our sheriffs. And I will back you to the very end in everything you do to provide law and order in your communities. Law and order starts with our sheriffs. Go back in time to the very beginning of sheriffs in the state of Texas. You were part of the men and women who helped to tame the West. Now, you're still taming some of the criminal elements that we're dealing with, but sometimes in a far different way, where you're doing things like tackling internet crimes. Times have changed, but the philosophical approach has not changed. The philosophical approach is one of a dedication and a commitment to ensuring that whatever type of crime you're dealing with, whatever type of attack that your constituents are facing, you will be able to summon not just the internal constitution, but also the tools and strategies to ensure that you as the sheriff and the people that serve under you will be able to respond to those challenges. What you do is that you promote safety in your communities, and we cannot thank you enough for doing that. We cannot promote safety without at the very same time confronting dangers, constantly changing dangers, sometimes deadly dangers. So it happened just recently in Harris County, something that I know has happened in other counties across the state. Just last Friday, Fernando Esqueda, a sheriff deputy, was laid to rest He was responding to and trying to track down someone who was accused of committing an assault. And while in his vehicle, he was ambushed and murdered in the line of duty. It's something that no one ever wants to see happen, but something that every law enforcement officer knows, that when they put on that uniform and put on that badge and get into their vehicle, they never know when they may encounter that type of danger that could cost them their life or cause an injury to them. And that shows the pride that we have in those who serve in law enforcement, because it takes an extraordinary human being to be willing to put their life on the line to make sure that others are protected, that your communities are saved. And so, as Governor of Texas, know that I speak for everybody in this state, that you have the gratitude of the people of the great state of Texas. For you, your staffs, your deputies, everyone who works in your offices, we thank you for putting your lives on the line to keep your communities a safer place. Thank you all very much. Now, kind of as I was suggesting, it seems like your job description is constantly changing. It was one thing back in the 1800s, another thing in the 1900s, and as we all know, something altogether different over the past few years. There seems to be new dangers that arrive. None of those dangers, however, may be as large or as prolific as the dangers that we are seeing because of open border policies. Policies that are far different than any border policies that we've ever seen before. We all know from our beginning, Texas has been a border state. We all know that there have been people crossing the border year after year. But we also all know that what is taking place on our border today is far different than it's ever been in the history of the United States. Far different in one way in volume. What's happened over the past 3 years is new all-time records have been set for the number of people crossing the border illegally. More than 11 million immigrants have crossed the border illegally in the past 3 years, and those are the ones who are known. If you add in those who are unknown and the gotaways, the number is going to be even larger than that. But more challenging than that, for what you all deal with, for what I deal with, is the traits of some of the people coming across the border. There are known rapists crossing the border, known murderers crossing the border. Unbelievably, there are known terrorists crossing the border. There's been an all-time record number of terrorists on the terrorist watch list who've been apprehended. One thing you all know that I know, and that is everybody who crosses the border with the aid and the assistance of the Mexican drug cartels. You know that if you're on the terrorist watch list, they're going to be paying more to not be apprehended. If we've apprehended hundreds of known terrorists in just the past 3 years, how many unknown terrorists have been able to make it across the border undetected? Who are they? Where are they? What challenge do they provide? Think about this crazy concept. Every single day, at every single public airport with commercial transportation in the United States, there are hundreds of TSA agents searching your body, searching your bags to make sure that no terrorist is going to get onto a plane to commit a crime. Why do we not have TSA agents by the thousands on the border doing the same thing to all these people coming across the border, undertaking investigations about who these people are? Why in the world would terrorists go through the complex strategies they used in 9/11 to try to commit a crime like they did when it's so easy now, when all you have to do is simply walk across the border. And then after you cross the border, knowing you're going to be released, then you can purchase whatever elements to commit a crime that you want to purchase. My point is this. Under the current strategies, it is easier now than it's been in the history of America for terrorists to enter our country and to infiltrate themselves and their techniques and strategies in places we will never know about until an attack occurs. The vigilance that puts on you and me is heightened and elevated more than it's ever been. Your ordinary task of dealing day to day with the criminal element in your communities is something you have to tackle. At the very same time, you have to be constantly vigilant, looking for the unseen and the unknowable, not knowing when that needle in the haystack is going to appear in your county, in your community, and not knowing the magnitude of the challenge, of the deadly challenge they can provide to your community. Already, putting terrorists aside, we've seen that the price that Texans have paid because of open border policies has been deadly. Just one of many examples was 12-year-old Jocelyn in Houston. Last month, she was raped and murdered by 2 illegal immigrants as she traveled to and back from a convenience store. She's not an isolated incident. There are, unfortunately, other victims just like her in Texas and many across the country. We have an obligation to find the way to be able to stop those murders and rapes from occurring. And that requires greater flexibility, increased forces and strategies by law enforcement like yourselves and by government offices like what we have either in your county or in our state. The good thing is the way that we have seen sheriffs respond to this challenge in unprecedented ways. As you might imagine, it's obvious, perhaps, that sheriffs on the border are responding to this. They don't have a choice. They are being overrun, outmanned. Sometimes, I hate to say this, even outgunned. And they're dealing with challenges the likes of which have never happened before. But the good news is this. Sheriffs across the state, from the Rio Grande all the way up to the Canadian River, are responding to the challenges that we as a state and you as sheriffs are dealing with. One thing that we've all come together on is Operation Lone Star. Operation Lone Star is a multifaceted organization collaborated together to make sure that we as a state are responding in unprecedented fashion to ensure that we're going to take matters into our own hands. That there may be some who say, listen, we shouldn't be worrying about what's happening, but that's not the Texas way. The Texas way is to say, we're going to take matters into our own hands and do what must be done to make sure we get our border secure. So part of what we did in collaborating Operation Lone Star is to add thousands of Texas National Guard. So much so, if you haven't seen this, you may check it out next time you're down there. We have on an ongoing basis so many thousands of National Guard. Texas is the only state in the history of America to create our own National Guard military base on the border itself, just a mile or two outside of Eagle Pass, Texas, that can house up to more than 2,000 National Guard members. State-of-the-art facility to house and locate these members who previously have been living in sporadic hotel and motel rooms, sometimes driving more than an hour a day to their job site, then driving back after that. Now they are living on the border itself, able to more quickly respond to the challenges up and down the entire border. We also have partners that you guys are accustomed to dealing with, the Texas Department of Public Safety. They have also deployed over 1,000 DPS troopers at different times, different locations, to work different aspects of responding to the border. But also, sheriffs have been an essential part of the response that Texas has provided in response to this unprecedented border crossing. We could not have had success without you. It's important that you recognize the success that we have achieved has been not only unprecedented, but has been substantial. Let me just give you a few examples that there's been different ways in which sheriffs have responded. One is there's an area in pretty much the middle of the border in Eagle Pass, Texas. Eagle Pass is an area that sometimes there have been as many as 5,000 illegal immigrants crossing the border a day in that one location. I told our National Guard, Texas is no longer going to tolerate that. There's a 50-acre park in Eagle Pass that was being used not only for those crossings, but for illegally processing those illegal immigrants. And I told the National Guard to take back our land and to wire it shut and don't allow any more crossings in that area. So what was is recently as late last year and early this year, a location where there could be as many as 5,000 people crossing the border a day, now on average, there's less than one illegal immigrant crossing a day in that location. Action to put up barriers to entry works. It's very simple. But here is especially where the sheriffs come in. Because one thing that we know, and that is when we are able to close down a 50-acre site like that, we know that the Mexican drug cartels that are bringing these people across the border, they will be looking to go around the perimeter of that. So that automatically affects the responsibilities of the sheriffs in those regions to make sure that they are able to step up and to respond to the periphery so that the cartels know that if they try to go around this obstacle, they're going to be met with the force of a Texas sheriff and be arrested and be shut down. And because you have stepped up individually and collaboratively, it's made the entire region safer. In fact, let's look at the entire Texas border. This is what's happened over the past year. Because of the resistance all of us working together have been able to achieve. At a time when we have seen other states on the border face increasing illegal immigration, California most prolifically, but also Arizona and New Mexico, while those states have been seeing an increase in illegal immigration. In Texas, over that same period of time, illegal immigration has gone down 74%. Those are results that Texans want to see. More numbers. All of us working together have made more than 45,000 criminal arrests of known criminals who crossed into our state or who came into our state and committed crimes. We've made more than 21,000 human smuggling charges. This became such a serious problem where our fellow Texans were being enticed by the cartels over social media devices like TikTok to be paid money to smuggle and move around our state illegal immigrants. This past year, working with legislators, I signed a law making it a mandatory minimum of 5 to 10 years behind bars for anybody caught human smuggling of illegal immigrants into our state. We have apprehended more than 500,000 illegal immigrants and seized enough fentanyl to kill far more than every man, woman, and child in the entire United States of America. The bottom line is this: those successes would not be possible without the role that Texas sheriffs have played. So I want to thank you as sheriffs for your solidarity. Going back to what I was talking about earlier with the solidarity that Texas sheriffs and I and the state of Texas showed with Israel during their times of challenge, Texas sheriffs have stood up and shown their solidarity with me. Looking for Sheriff Smith, there he is. You'll remember this. So it was, 2 months ago, I think it was. Sheriff Smith spearheaded an effort to create a letter and a proclamation that they came to the Texas Capitol. You and about 2 or 3 dozen of your fellow sheriffs came and presented that to me to publicly show the solidarity and support the Texas sheriffs have for what we are doing in the state of Texas through Operation Lone Star to shut down and to reduce illegal crossings into our state. So, Sheriff, thank you for spearheading that effort, and thank you for showing solidarity with the great state of Texas. Now, one reason for this support, no doubt, is that you as sheriffs are facing in your own communities the same problems that we are facing as a state. There is a saying or phrase now, which is 100% true, and that is that every county is a border county. You don't have to be on the Rio Grande. You don't have to be 100 yards away from Mexico these days to be a border county. Now, that's not to diminish what the magnitude of what the border county sheriffs are dealing with, but there's also this fact. In most of the 254 counties in the state of Texas, you're dealing with illegal immigrants coming into your counties for a variety of different reasons, causing complaints that I've heard about from your local constituents, saying that something needs to be done to address this, and it's the local sheriffs who are stepping up and addressing it. Putting aside just the illegal immigrants coming, I know for a fact that many of you, as sheriffs, have seen an uptick in gang activity and human trafficking activity in your communities, posing dangers in your counties. And I will make a highly probable guess that about 100% of the sheriffs, 100% of the counties have had to deal with the deadly consequences of fentanyl infiltrating into your county. Sometimes it's being smuggled through your county. Sometimes it's being smuggled to your county. Regardless, the consequences and the battles that you're having to face are more consequential now because of that deadly fentanyl coming into your county. Since the launch of Operation Lone Star, the amount of fentanyl seized is almost incomprehensible. More than more than a half a billion lethal doses have been seized, in part because of the efforts that you play, in part because of your collaboration with local law enforcement or state law enforcement. We've been able to achieve that. Think about this concept. Without your help, many Americans, whether they be in Texas or in other states, many Americans would have lost their lives without seizures of fentanyl that you've been a part of. The reality is, the names of the people whose lives have been saved, they're never going to show up on a list. They don't know it. Nobody knows the fact that they've been saved. Equally true is that your efforts will never go unrecognized or underappreciated or underestimated for the role that you played in keeping Americans' names off the list of the deceased because of the fentanyl that's been trafficked into our state. To help respond to this, working with the state legislature, I signed laws that crack down on fentanyl trafficking. Listen, we're dealing with a deadly drug. It's only right that those who are distributing this deadly drug can now be tried and convicted for a deadly crime, which is the case now because now they can be accused of, tried for, and successfully prosecuted for murder, which is exactly what they are doing when they pass off one of these fentanyl-laced pills and kill one of our fellow Texans. Also, to help Texans respond in a life-saving way to this threat, we are distributing Narcan, the antidote to fentanyl, to and through sheriff's offices in all 254 counties across the state. And recognizing that rural counties don't have the same magnitude of resources that some of the larger urban counties have, we devoted more than $300 million of funding to help rural sheriffs and rural law enforcement have more financial capability to respond to these unprecedented challenges. We know that through those strategies, working together collaboratively, we accomplish far more. Bottom line is that I'm extraordinarily proud of the work that we have done together on a bipartisan basis to keep Texans safe. As sheriffs, you've always stepped up to keep our state and your communities a safer place. I thank you for your hard work. I thank you for your dedication. I thank you for your courage. May God bless you in your efforts, and may God forever bless the great state of Texas. Thank you all very much. Thank you all.
Everybody have a seat, please. Ladies and gentlemen, I now present to you Gilliam County, Oregon Sheriff Gary Betancourt, who is the current president of the Western States Sheriff's Association. Accompanying Sheriff Betancourt is Sheriff Mark Daniels, Cochise County, Arizona Executive Board member of the Western States Sheriff's Association. Sheriff Corey Helton, Lee County, New Mexico, Western States Sheriff's Association Executive Board member, and Dave Brown, Executive Director of the Western States Sheriff's Association. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Skylar, and this board for yielding a little time for us. Good morning, everybody. My name is Corey Helton. I'm a sheriff in southeast New Mexico, about 5.5 hours east of here, and the current immediate past president of the Western State Sheriff Association.